but the subconscious is developing.
Yes.
And you're developing it. So from 0 to 7, 98% of every belief and habit that she's going to have is coming. Whether the frontal lobe's developed or not, that's happening.
And you don't wait.
And you don't
and
wait.
It's too late.
So it doesn't make sense to wait. Now, I understand that the logic and reasoning and all of those things are going to come later, but that's going to come from when you imprinted those first 7 years.
Exactly.
And so it will develop. I would argue that it waits to develop until the habits and beliefs are there so that it knows what to develop on top.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Parenting on Purpose, your podcast for enjoying the journey as a parent. So I think we like this in-person vibes. We're flying people out. No, just kidding. I met this awesome gentleman, Dr. Rocco. He just happened to live in our backyard. So Dr. Rocco, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. This is exciting.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here.
Awesome.
So Dr. Rocco is the owner of It's Dad Time, which I thought was just the coolest brand. I actually found him on Facebook by reading his memes, and it was the video you had throwing your daughter in the pool, talking about parents engaging and not being on their phone. It moved me.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
Yeah, so it's actually funny how everything started is my assistant found that audio, actually, and used that audio, like, you know what I mean, like, whatever, however people repurpose the audio, and we gave the guy credit, so I'm big on giving the guy credit.
That's awesome.
But that video, just kind of took off, and everybody was like, oh my God, this is awesome. So it all came together at that same time. Like, it was good to help get my message out there because it was perfectly in alignment with that. Like, the intentional parenting, right? Like, just
I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we have not prepared what we're going to talk about today on purpose, because I think what Dr. Rocco brings to the table, and we'll talk a little about all of that in a second, is how he's developed this brand, what he does, and the message he has is so in alignment for parents today in 2023. I think it's so imperative for us to just be present, and that's kind of the whole vibe.
Yeah.
I think our brands are very on point together, which is so cool.
I love it. It's funny. I had a guy reach out to me who I'm working with one of the books that I'm writing, and he was talking about how he wanted to start something similar to It's Dad Time. And he's like, yeah, but I don't want to step on your toes. I'm like, listen, there can't be enough parenting podcasts, especially for fathers. And I have women on mine. So I just had Bree on. It's going to get released. Bree's my best friend. She's a doctor also. It's going to get released next Wednesday. But it's not just dads, but it's really honing in on the, everywhere I turn, I see these places where women are really good about coming into community with each other. They're really good about supporting each other. After I had my daughter Sloan, I was like, I don't want to have any more children. That was it. That was done. And I went to visit Bree last year, with Sloan, and she's like one of her godmothers. We say she has 3 godmothers. It's like one of her godmothers.
Very godmother.
She's going to be good. And I just remember watching the moms that came over for the party with their children. Like, it was just this thing. And they all were kind of the same as Bree. It was like this tribe of people helping everybody out. And I remember thinking, damn, if I knew that existed, I probably would have tried to have more kids sooner. I didn't realize that, so it's cool to, everywhere I see is this tight knit of parents and moms. And I'm like, damn, dads need some support too. So that's how it's kind of just started.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And how I raise her is very different. A lot of people don't love it. Because it's different than how I was raised. It's different than, I want to be very intentional. Every word matters on how I say it. And I know, when I say some people don't like it, I pay so close attention to my daughter, which everybody should do, that I know her limits. To the point where if something happens and she's crying, I know the second the cry changes to where she's crying because she's getting attention, to where she was crying because something was emotionally wrong.
And Sloan is 6. So
Six.
he's not letting her cry in her crib.
No, we can talk about that. Please, for the love of God, don't do that. Let's come back to that. But I know that the second that happens, and what happens in that second is now you're appeasing the subconscious, and the subconscious is now going to link how you respond from that second on to how she is going to behave later in life. And so I am harder on her in those aspects that other people like, but I realize that there's a physical being, but I'm actually talking to the subconscious. And I know how hard to push her too. I know when we're somewhere and she's just shy and doesn't want to do something, it's like, okay, tell me how you feel.
Yeah.
It's let's talk to one person. And she's very outgoing as it is. Or perfect examples. We were at my house and we went down to the waterfall and there was this log that went across this big opening, right? And so I ran across the log. And then she wanted to do it. You can fall. I mean, it was up to my chin, I was standing in the hole and it was up to my chin.
What would you do?
Yeah, right. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And so she was on the other side and she was scared, I'm like, okay, well, feel it. Yeah. Feel the fear. A big thing in my house is feel the fear and do it anyways.
Yes.
She knows that, right? But I don't negate that the fear's there. So I'm like, okay, Aunt Mai will stand on the other side. Dad will stand on this side. How about the first time we hold your hand, you go across? So we held her hand. She went across, so it was a little less fearful. And she's like,
you guys are in the water.
No, so this was beside beside the water and the waterfall in the river. There's this big old furnace thing. It's hard to explain.
Okay.
Basically, there's a log over this huge, enormous pit thing, and you can walk across it if you chose to, right? And maybe you shouldn't have chose to because it was definitely dead and rotten, but we're doing it, yeah. So we help her with that, and then she comes back, and I'm like, okay, and so we do this 5 or 6 times to her, and then she starts going, she slips and falls, and I catch her, right? Because I'm not holding her hand this time, and she's going too slow, so she falls. So we do this whole thing, but after every time she came back, she was like, I'm scared. I'm like, okay, what do you need? Mm-hmm. She didn't need anything, and I'm like, all right, feel it, and just put one foot in front of the other, and she did it, and there were definitely points where she wanted to stop, right? And I'm like, hold on, we committed to this. Let's do it. I'm here. You're not doing it alone. And so, but I know her so well that I know I can push that boundary, right? And if you don't know your children, that can come as abusive because you're infringing on their boundaries and their desires.
Right. I no longer want to do this.
I no longer want to do this. I knew she still wanted to do it. It was just the fear.
Right.
And fuck for letting that control us.
There's a lot of things to unpack with that because one, your prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. The kids are between first it was 7. Then I had a doctor on the other day that told me it's not really fully developed. So they're about 16, and I felt awful that I was getting on my teenager's case. I'm like, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
Tell me how my brain's not developed. So thanks for being an asshole.
Right.
I'm like, oh, great. So there's that. But I also have a 3-year-old, and I know that logic is already forming. So you gotta, right. It's you don't use it as a crutch, but we understand that it can form. So there's that. Then there's the being in tune with her to know that she's safe.
Yep.
She feels safe, and now she's trying to recognize what's holding her back. Now that is imperative. I can feel how that's going to set her up for success in life.
Yeah, and again, it's all right. So it's not developed yet. It makes perfect sense. But the subconscious is developed.
Yes.
And you're developing it. So from 0 to 7, 98% of every belief and habit that she's going to have is coming. Whether the frontal lobe's developed or not, that's happening.
And you don't wait.
And you don't wait.
It's too late.
So it doesn't make sense to wait. Now, I understand that the logic and reasoning and all of those things are going to come later, but that's going to come from when you imprinted those first 7 years. Exactly. And so it will develop. I would argue that it waits to develop until the habits and beliefs are there so that it knows what to develop on top. Wow. Because it's a higher order of thinking.
Exactly.
Does that make sense? And so it has to have it's like, we were talking about the spiral staircase and all those things. You have to have the principles to build anything. You don't have the principles and the philosophy behind it, nothing's going to get built. So what principles do you parent by? What principles do you want your children instilled with? How does that look?
Yeah.
And if we don't ask ourselves that, especially as men, so as dads, I believe...
This is good. We're here for it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of dads that watch this, and I think you're giving them permission. I'm going to say something triggering. When I say something triggering, so cancel culture, it's fine. You're meant to be here.
Say something triggering, so that's good.
Because I want you to go where I think you're going, and then at one point we are going to wrap into the whole doctor.
I just get going.
It's good, but I think you offer, which is really cool. I think dads, and I'm not a dad, so I can't overgeneralize. I think dads feel feminized by trying to care.
Yeah.
I think they were raised in an environment where it was very. Rough or this or however it was. I think that's their idea of what a man is. And so now you have the more integrated man.
Yeah.
Which is very much in tune. It doesn't mean like, feminine in the, sexualized way,
Sure.
but just in the whole human way of bringing that together. The fact that you create a community, that you want to be that, but it's very important to also maintain the backbone that is a father.
Right.
With that stage, like, please go over where you're going to go.
Yeah, so I call it, all right. I hate, but I don't like when people are like, oh, the masculine and the feminine and divine, but there is a context for it. And I just don't like catchphrases. I don't like words. It drives me nuts because a lot of people that use them, you're like, yeah, but whoa, back up.
What does that mean?
What does it mean? What does it mean to you?
And you don't know because you're just using it.
Yeah,
it sounds fun.
Because it sounds fun, so it drives me nuts. But I will say that there was an era of my life where I was what I call the very immature masculine, because I believe in all gender roles. I believe that men are men and women are women, and that's how it's supposed to be. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't think women can rise to the top and be CEOs. Some of my best friends and Sloan's aunts are very powerful women. I want to surround her with that, right? And I love it. But I do believe that there is we'll get to the authoritative part of the subconscious mind and how I think it matters, the coming from masculine. So, I believe that there is the immature masculine, and then you usher in and become the divine masculine. The divine masculine is a masculine that has healed himself from all of the aspects and is okay with having emotions or all of these things. He still controls his emotions. He doesn't let his emotions rule him. If a situation comes up, he doesn't cry. He handles the situation, and it cries later, right? There's different ways to handle this, right? And so I think that it's important as the man, and I noticed that parenting out of the immature masculine, you always lose because it's through the ego. You don't really understand what you're doing, and there's no intention behind it. Yeah. When you step into and usher yourself into this divinity, I guess you could say, which Sloan did for me. No other woman on the planet has been able to do it. I mean, she did it. Like, she heals massive aspects of me all the time,
and only you.
Of course, 100%. And so I needed that thing to come in for me to then want to be better at all of this stuff. And so I think that so let's go back to touch on why I think it's so important to have the man doing certain things in the house is I believe that for a child, there are very different energies with the mom and the dad. Feminine, masculine, whatever you want to call that. They could interchange. The mom could take on a more masculine role and the dad could take on a more feminine role. I don't think that's the best way to parent, but it's okay, right? Either way, it's got to work for the family. And when you do that, the father has the authority in my mind over the subconscious because the mother wants to coddle, cater, and make sure that the child's protected. All she sees is the physical. She sees this little thing.
And she sees what can go wrong.
She sees everything that can go wrong.
Yep.
She is the lifeline, which we can come full circle into why you don't let your child cry out at bedtime because all they want is closeness and this only thing. You are the only thing that keeps that child alive. That's your breastfeeding. Especially at that age. The mother is the lifeline to everything for that child. Yeah, especially if you're breastfeeding. So if you put this child into a room all by itself and you just took away its only comfort and its only supply of food in a world of giants, you'd fucking cry too. Yeah. I don't care how bad you think you are. You'd cry too, right? So I believe it's a lot harder for the mother to separate the emotion of the physical need to the emotion of the subconscious need.
And we take it out for a second, take it out of the modern context, right? So there was this research about, and it was different than the book you sent me, which I loved. Yeah. But in other cultures across the world, it's in like tribal cultures, it's very common for the son to be with the mother 90% of the time, majority of the time, until they reach that age where they start to, and it's young. It's like between 9 and 13. It's not like manhood. Yeah. But it's when they're like, you're no longer your mother's son. You are now your father's man. Yep. Like you have transitioned away from needing that life.
Yeah.
And it's a very common motif. I did read it in the book that you recommended, and I've seen it in all different continents in tribal cultures.
Yeah, that book's so the continuum concept. Everybody should read it. If you're going to have children, I based a lot of my parenting off the continuum concept. Yeah. And I loved in that book where the mother becomes an actor. because she knows it's time for my little man or little guy to become a man.
Yeah.
So they take the boy, they send him out into the wilderness, almost like 300 in the beginning of that movie where he goes out to kill the wolf or whatever, right? But once he does his thing, he comes back. And as he's being taken away, the mother puts on a show of weeping and crying and wanting him back. And he has to leave, right? But she puts on that show with all of her girlfriends in the tribe. And then he leaves, but they're doing it on purpose, right? They're breaking this thing. They're breaking it, and when they break it, he comes back. They rejoice that this man this man got brought back into the tribe. In reverse that into today, I mean, I just posted a thing on Instagram the other day. These 4 14-year-old boys were at Publix. I was getting a sub. The mother ordered all of their subs for them, cut them into 4. So that they wouldn't choke while they're eating their subs. I'm like, what the fuck world are we living in? Where these 4 14-year-old boys can't. My daughter's 6 and she orders her own food. Yeah. So when Aunt Taylor comes down.
My son's 3.
Yeah. I mean, Sloan has always done that. And I've told her, we've been at restaurants. And I'm like, Aunt Taylor went to order. She stopped. And I was like, Sloan will order her food. Right? And at first she was shy, and she didn't want to. But I'm like, baby girl, if you want to eat, you got to order your own food. You know? There's nothing to be scared of. Like, we're being lying at Chipotle. I'm holding you. There's nothing to be scared of. But if you want chicken, you better speak up or you're not getting chicken.
That's my husband.
Yeah.
But again, that's that strong. But it's interesting. Like, there's no wrong. And I think we're all coming into this and, like, you all find people, and I equate this to fitness. Like, you see somebody and you're like, damn, that girl's got this. She looks great. And I'm like, I'm going to, like, work on that and do that in the gym. And you don't realize someone's looking at you having the same thoughts about you.
Yeah.
Like, we are all here as mirrors to help each other grow. So there's no wrong. But there is awareness. And if this triggers you, like, I always love the likes, dislikes on, like, posts.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you dislike something, like, why is that? Because that's actually probably a good thing that it triggers you if you give it the space to, like, sit with the emotion long enough to understand the why.
Also, why do you have enough time? That's a whole other thing to unpack.
In the case of parenting, and I know this because I was blessed with Kinda, and we were so young. We were like 20. I was 22. Rose was 25. So there was no thinking it. You just were there.
Yeah.
And now that I'm older. Gabriel's 3. I got to experience, and I'm glad I did, all the mom guilt, the parent guilt about, like, am I doing this way and this? And just because it works for Dr. Rocco and me doesn't mean it needs to work for you. Like, it's really about coming to wholeness in yourself and, like, feeling what's best for your child, but not doing it out of place of, this is what everybody else is doing, so I should do it too.
Yeah.
And that's what really bothered me with the whole, like, let your kid do this and he's not going to be dependent. And I'm like, it feels like there's thousands and thousands of years of neurons in my body telling me that that's wrong.
Yeah. And you should listen to that.
And I'm going to because I can't sleep at night.
Yeah.
Even if he's in or sleeping, I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, it goes against literally everything that we stand for. You know, I believe the innate intelligence is going to come in all directions. This is, sorry.
Yeah, no, like, this is a very common thing that comes up on this podcast. So, like, I'm gonna toss it back over to you, but just setting the stage of, we as adults are going to want to protect our kids. That is what we're meant to do, and there are crazies and creeps and all kinds of stuff out there, and you absolutely need to do that.
Yeah.
Like, this world requires that,
100%.
but it also requires awareness. Like, my son's 3. Do I need to be putting on his shoes, or can he do it himself? Will it take longer? Yes. Is it going to annoy the crap out of me because I'm trying to rush off? Yes. What am I doing if I don't let him do it? What am I robbing him of? It's just that.
Yeah.
It's the mental. And you know what? There may be times where I'm going to put on his damn shoes because we are in a rush.
Yeah.
But it's just having the awareness and not running off of pure like reaction.
Yep.
That's what I want people to glean from this.
Yeah. And there's off what you said there. I do that with Sloan, of course, with the shoes, but with words. Okay. So, what was she trying to say the other day? It was a Harry Potter word.
Yes.
It was like 6 months ago. She loves it. It's great. It's great. Yeah.
She got come over.
She did. She got little.
We got magic wands for days.
Yeah. We're gonna make it happen. And man,
Muggle?
I don't remember what the word was.
What's
but
the context?
I can't even remember. That feels Voldemort.
Oh,
or something like that. Right? It was Voldemort or something. And she was at the park. Yeah, right.
If you know, you know. Okay,
if you know, yeah. We were at the park, and she was with another girl, and that girl couldn't say it. So Sloan changed how she said it to how the girl said it. And I was like, whoop, stop that dead in its tracks. Right there. And I was like, baby girl, you know how to say it. Please say it correctly. And so she didn't want to do it because she didn't want to embarrass the other girl.
That's beautiful.
Yes, beautiful. But I'm like, honey, you need to say the word correctly. And so we stayed there for 4 minutes until she said it correctly. And she said it correctly. And I'm like, cool. Now we're going to keep saying it. She kept saying it correctly. To the point where then the other girl.
Did he appear magically out of thin air?
No, that was him. I've been like, where's my wand? Pulled out the clock and tried to see if it worked. But the girl didn't say it in the end of this whole thing. Right?
So don't degrade your own skills.
Yeah, it's the teaching moment right there. And so the whole way home, we talked about that. We had a conversation. Sloan, we're never going to dim your light because you are the example for somebody else. And by doing it right, you see how it taught her how to say it right. You know, and so I'm big with that. Where like, if she even knows a word and then she starts saying it like a baby for some reason, I'm like, well, hold on. Please say the word correctly. And so she says it correctly. And I'm like, okay, I make her say it correctly so that I know she's purposely doing it. And that's okay. Play is very different. But I don't allow her to play with the word until she says it correctly so I know she knows and her brain knows. It's little things like that. It's the same with the shoes. It matters, and it's going to matter in life.
It's interesting. There's a whole like study of the magic of spelling and using words. Like they say, like we lose 202 words a year, and I always get feedback from friends and family. Like I love the use of your language. Like I really do think we're all like modern day magi. Like we are here to like really use our power. Like you can be as woo woo or as pragmatic as you want with that. But we're here to use our raw elements and our internal focus to make stuff happen. Like, sounds like magic to me.
It's the
same thing.
Yeah.
But spelling has a very interesting weight and lettering and the whole curvature and there's like a whole study around it, like calligraphy. It's so cool.
Now you're making me study that.
Oh, dude, I love it. There's this super cute lady that I watched on a Aubrey Marcus podcast, and her whole thing was like the spoken word in a way that sets it up for magic, as if it's like spelling.
Yeah.
And then in school, when they do certain things and they're like degrading the words, and it's just a very cool practice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, words matter in how you say everything. Right? This is why I do declarations with my daughter. This is why I reframe things. Like, how are you doing today? I'm thriving. Well, that's very different than I'm doing good or I'm okay, right?
It's like teach them to be authentic.
Yeah. You know, and when you live from a thriving standpoint and that becomes your set point, you know, of course, every day she's not going to be thriving.
Right. And that's okay.
It's absolutely okay. Yeah. But damn it, if her set point is thriving, then not thriving becomes good, not shit. You know, I mean, like, where is our set point? It's like T. Harv Eker talks about it, which is amazing. He's like, if you have a level 2 problem and you're a level 5 person, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. But if you're a level 5 person, you got a level 9 problem, that's a really big fucking deal. Yeah. Become a level 9 person so that the problems don't matter, right? They don't go away. We just adapt better to them. And I think setting a child up with the greatest adaptability possible is our job as parents. End of story.
And so a few things here. Einstein said, you can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created the problem. Of course. Same thing you're saying. The empowering thing here is you don't have to be born a level 9 person. Most of the time you are born a level 9 person, and God bless and love your parents. They were doing the best they could. They made you a level 4 person the way we are making our children. Yeah. So the interesting thing here is it's like you are meant to fail forward in front of your kids. You are meant to show them that path. What fascinates me, and I can share this with you because of our common interest, when I started this podcast, even before like this became like the path, I was researching like how they parented in Egypt, how they parented in China, how they parented in different cultures. Because I'm like, we're pretty new in the global turn of society. Yeah. Like, why am I going to say that what I'm doing is right? Because I saw it on a Pinterest post. Like, and what I
somebody with Health 5D Mama page, you know, or whatever catchphrase they could do. Yeah,
which is totally fine.
Of course, I love it.
Everyone is just trying to grow. What it taught me is like in a lot of other cultures, there isn't this. I need to stop my life to become a parent, and now I'm done.
Yeah.
And when I look at my parents, they were not this like mentally cognizant, but that is exactly what they did. They just lived, and because they lived, I aspired to be like that.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting part that we in our generation could framework.
Of course. I mean, I talked, I don't know if it was the last podcast I was on, but I talked about something similar to this. It was like, okay, if you go to the gym and you value health, well, if your kid doesn't see you go to the gym, how do they know to value health? Like, they gotta know. I mean, even if they don't get to go, like, there are some gyms where the kids can go in. I mean, I grew up going with my dad. You know, we'd sit there while he worked out there. I'm not letting you do that. But she still gets to go play at the play center while I'm going to the gym. So now she already has a love for the gym and loves going and understands that it's a daily part of our lives. Like, if you value eating healthy, like, well, are you eating healthy and then feeding your kid McDonald's? Because, like, whoa, you're sending mixed signals there. Like, do you value finances? Are you working? Like, my daughter, sometimes she decides to wake up. I get up at 6, 5:45 or 6. Some days she gets up at 6:30 because she just wants to sit there beside me while I'm working. Okay, well, now she's seeing that Dad puts in her work and gets it done, and this is what it looks like. Or I put her to bed at night, and she wants me to go right to bed with her. And I'm like, well, baby, your Daddy's got to do a little bit of work first, you know? And so she sees, okay, you stay up a little later, you get up a little earlier, you do this work, like these. If you don't show them, they don't know.
And if you tell them, it means crap.
Nothing means nothing. How many times your parents tell you stuff that you didn't listen to, please?
Yeah. and then they're going to get it from outside sources. So I think this is a great place to talk about a few things. You could get poetic license to leave the name however you say it. I know that you co-parent.
Yes.
I know that you obviously run a practice or a doctor.
Yes.
So the fact that you're so present, building a brand to help spread that awareness, I love that. But if you want to just speak on, you obviously have stuff happening in your life. It's not like you're just sitting around all day. You have a lot to balance, yet you still prioritize Sloane's connection and her development.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear anything that comes to your heart around that.
Exhaustion. I'll be as raw as possible.
So true.
I'm fucking tired. I probably break down and cry once every 2 or 3 weeks. Like, and I just do. I mean, I feel like the weight of the world's on my shoulder all the fucking time because, like I shared with you before, I'm in this big transition from the office and everything to creating this into a full-time business. Is food going to be on the table? Are all of these things going to happen? Am I going to be able to afford horse camp this summer? Like, all of these things weigh.
I love the.
Yeah. I mean, there's days where I won't eat because I'm so stressed, and I'm just like, fuck, you know. And so a good day, a good example would be this weekend. I was supposed to leave town to do some work. It got canceled because Fort Lauderdale got like 20 inches of rain. Like nothing happened. Everything shut down. So I was like, all right, awesome. Well, I woke up Saturday morning and I was just melancholy, I was depressed. And I'm like, okay, I know it's because the weight of the world is on my shoulders. And I hope to tell people this because it's normal. Like, it's okay.
Exactly.
So I was like, all right, now it's my opportunity. I get to use the tools I have to work my way out of this and not stay here all day long. Because this is what I would teach Sloane. A lot of times I ask myself, like, when I'm doing something, and Sloane's not there.
It's a mirror.
If she had a camera of what Dad was doing right now, would she approve? Because if she wouldn't, fuck, I shouldn't be doing that. So I'm like, okay.
I can't hold her to a standard. I won't hold myself
exactly.
as disintegrous.
Yeah, I can't live that way.
Yeah,
so I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to have a cup of coffee first. That'll fucking do something. But when you're in that state, like, that's a win.
Yeah.
Getting up and making a cup of coffee, it's a fucking win. Yeah. And I was like, let's go. So I got up and I made the cup, or I actually went to Capital One because it's near where I live. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. So I went and got a coffee.
And now you're up, you're moving, you're out. Fresh energy.
Something's starting to happen. And I'm like drinking it, but it's still like, not much is changing. Okay, all right, gym. And then I was like, oh, before gym, I was like, okay, well, I'm deficient in protein. I haven't eaten very much protein the last 3 days. Well, there's an absolute link to depression and lack of protein. So I'm like, okay, ribeye. We got a ribeye, put it on the grill.
10 in the morning?
Yeah. Oh my God. So I eat the entire ribeye. And I'm like, I don't know if that was enough. So I drink 50 grams of protein. So now I have like all the food for the day already in me in like 45 minutes because I'm just like, do it, you know? So then I'm like, all right, gym without puking. So because I still wasn't there, right? So I was like, okay. So I went to the gym, did like legs because I know legs are the best way. Legs feed the wolf. So let's really drive on the legs and hamstrings and glutes. So I did that, dragged ass through the whole workout. Didn't want to do it. Didn't want to be there. Had no motivation. Was still depressed. Like it's still there.
But you're still doing the
But
thing.
I'm doing the fucking thing. Because I'm like, I'm not staying
In
here,
this, yeah.
right? It's how can I tell Sloan and feel the fear and do it anyways, and then me stay in this state? So at this point, it's like, one, I'm like, all right, now the sauna for 20 minutes. Sweat this bitch out. You know, so I'm like, I don't get, you know, so now
I
with the
would
sauna.
have dragged your ass to the pickle.
Right. And so now I'm in the sauna, and I'm like, okay. I leave the sauna, I go home, I have brain tap. I don't know if you've ever heard of brain tap. Okay, so I use the brain tap.
Yeah.
I love brain tap. I hate meditating.
Yeah.
So I was like, if I hate meditating, how can I augment and get the benefits? Brain tap. Done deal. It's awesome. I love it. And so then I got on my brain tapped. All right, at this point, after all of that, I got this little shot in the arm of like, you can get a little work. Like I was starting to tip the scales, right, of it. And so I went to the cigar lounge. It's like one of my favorite things to do. So I sat at the cigar lounge, smoked a cigar, was starting to get out of it. Worked my way till by 6 p.m. Like, and it was a Saturday that normally I would have had things to do, but the universe blessed me with the day of nothing to do because everything got shut down and that's what it is, right?
And this is not a typical day, but the one I want to interject here is like, this is a self-care day, however that looks to you. Like, as parents, there are going to be freaking days, weeks, where you're just running. And we don't have the ability to do that. So sometimes we are going to have to dig ourselves out to get to a place of homeostasis so we can just then grow.
Yeah.
But I love that you recognize it. You're like, go from
there. Yeah. Well, and I had to do something, right? Because I'm like, this isn't going to change. So I did that. Then I walked back home and it was still fucking there. And so the point I'm trying to drive home is that it's normal. Like, it's okay, right? Something was off in my life and I wasn't on the trajectory so that's what I believe depression and anxiety is. It's just the body giving you a warning sign something's fucking wrong. Yeah. We don't want you going through this course. Yeah. Well, I've got the weight of the world on me and I know the direction I want to go and it's very evident when I think about that direction. There's no anxiety or depression, right? But getting there fast enough was causing it.
Resistance.
So then I ended up getting in the shower. I took my daughter's step stool. I sat in the shower for 40 minutes with the hot water on. Just sat there. And then my girlfriend came over and we walked down the avenue. We got pizza. Smoked another cigar on the way back. By the time I went to bed, it was gone.
That's awesome.
It took all fucking day.
All day. Isn't that? You know what's interesting as you're saying this? I'm thinking to myself because we're even if we don't try to be, at some level we're all self-absorbed. It's like you don't think our kids have days like that,
right?
And do they have space in this life, in this crazy world of freaking piano lessons, and soccer? Do they have space to have 2 minutes to themselves?
Yep. See, and I make sure she does. She's always allowed to tell me she needs time, she needs space, she needs alone time in the room.
But she's 6.
Yeah.
What about the 2-year-old?
Yeah.
Who doesn't know
yeah.
that? Like that decompression time.
Yeah.
And that's something like Gabriel is in this cute phase now. And it's funny because I am aware of my maternal drive. And he's like, Mommy, no one's with me. I'm lonely. And so I'll come and I'll kiss him and I'm like, Mommy is happy to sit here with you, but this is your time for you.
Yeah.
I don't want to dictate what that looks like for you. This is your time to, sit with it. Yeah, and it's interesting at his age, like everything's so immediate. So if he's like, there was a sad moment today, that's how he'll describe it. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about it. I try so hard. I don't want to stay in that emotion unnecessarily, but I really want him to feel it. And then I want to redirect him to another emotion.
Yeah.
We had an amazing life coach on the other day, and doctor talking just about that. We are not depressed. Like they talk about teenage depression, teenage anxiety. She's like, it drives her crazy because they're so pill happy. These physicians, they're like, they're not depressed. They're humans having a season or a moment of depression.
Right.
You're not giving them the tools to experience another emotion.
And I would argue, what are you layering on top of that? Right. How much exercise are they getting? How much TikTok time are they getting on their phones? Have they been outside and breathed fresh air? Have they been just with their friends? None of my friends were depressed because we rode fucking bikes to each other's house and just did dumb shit outside.
Yeah.
Like we didn't stroll and have dope. I mean, you could stack all this stuff on top of it, but having space to even just be with your friends and not be okay, especially as a woman. Like, I understand that I'm not going to be able to help Sun through every single event in her life because I am her father and there are things my job, I believe, is to create a space where she can come to me with anything. I'm working really hard at creating that now. I also realize that I'm her father and times may come where it's easier to go to mom or it's easier to go, a sexual experience is not very good. Like, dad's going to probably want to kill somebody. Maybe it's better to talk to mom about that thing, or your girlfriend. Like, I understand that that's okay, but you can always come to me, and my job is to keep my cool now. Yeah. But if I don't keep my cool now at 6, she's not going to want to do it later in life. But even their friends are an outlet.
100%.
The groups that they're hanging out, like it's okay to have that. And, you know, I mean, going back to the co-parenting thing, or well, how I juggle everything, I don't have a great way to tell you how, besides to just keep fucking going.
Yeah.
Like and I think that's purpose.
I appreciate that.
That's purpose, right? Because the bigger picture and the purpose allows me to handle all of that, because I would have quit this a while ago.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like, I would have just not do stuff. And so it is heavy. It is hard. I think it's very normal. I think dads struggle with it all the time because you have nobody to tell it's hard to. And there is really no relief coming. The relief coming is you build exactly what you want with the vision you want.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a vision, there is no relief coming. So like, let's get clear on your vision. Like, what do you want it to be? Do you want to have, like, my goal, September 1st through January 1st, I don't ever want to have to physically be somewhere. Because I want to be able to go elk hunting, deer hunting, spend time in the fall in the north because I love it, and spend holidays with my family, traveling or going wherever. So I don't want to physically have to be in a location. Okay. Well, that vision then needs to have a plan, and then I need to execute the plan and make it happen.
Yep.
It's going to be stressful.
Yeah.
But if you want that life, you got to just.
I had a spiritual teacher. I think teachers are so important in every facet of life. I have business coaches. I have like spiritual coaches. I had a spiritual coach that said, like, if not this, then what? And it's like that's not like a one-time statement. That's like what they call it in Buddhism. It's like a noam. It's like something that you repeat. It's like a life adage. If not now, then what? Or if not this, then what? If not this, then what? If you weren't achieving this goal, you would either be unhappy because you're not breathing your heart's full potential, or you'd be chasing something else. There's nothing wrong. It's all good. It's just having the perspective of where you are.
I would wonder, I actually thought about this on the way here. I wonder so suicide and mental health is a big thing right now. And I wonder what the rate of entrepreneur and people who have a vision and what their suicide rate is opposed to somebody working for somebody else and not having a vision.
Amazing. That's a great thought.
Because you have something to anchor to with this, and you have nothing to anchor to with this.
And your brain's growing. Like your brain's doing what it's supposed to do, is creating new mental synapses and connections and physically growing. You're living in crescendo, not diminuendo.
Yeah.
That's a good thought.
And to me, it just makes sense. Like I was at the gym the other day. I was in the sauna. This kid, I don't know if he looks young, but I don't know. It's hard to tell anymore, you know. But I know he's not in high school, so let's just put him at 21. Okay.
Let's give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, let's give him the benefit.
I don't know. I know where he lives, and I take my daughter down there. They're a little poor happy. I'm just gonna
say,
he's 15. I'm like, oh, she's good.
Yeah. And so I'm talking to him. We're just talking, whatever. I can't remember what he asked me a question about, but we just started talking. And he was telling me that he's trying to break this cycle that he's in on social media and not really feeling like he has a purpose and not wanting this lifestyle. And he's like, I've decreased this and that. And he's like telling me all these things that he's going to stop doing. He stopped hanging out with some of his friends because one of his friends lives at home, has an $1,100 BMW payment plus the insurance. And I'm like, what? I don't even have a car payment like that, you know? And so, but he's like, I don't want whatever this is.
That's great.
And so I saw him 2 days ago. Actually, the day I was depressed. I saw him Saturday in the sauna. I'm like, of course this kid's here, right? So like now I'm depressed and this kid's here, and he's like, oh my god,
looking at you for
he's like looking at me for advice, and I'm like, I got no energy. But you know, but he's in there and he's talking. He like quit social media, quit hanging out with his friends. He's almost done stopping vaping, and he's like, everything is starting to turn up. I'm like, listen to me very carefully. You live in your generation. You're 21 years old. To rise to the top of people within 5 years of you is so fucking easy. All you have to do is be disciplined and delay the gratification. And you'll become one of the top people in whatever field you want to be in.
Right.
And it's just like...
And you have the space as not a parent right now to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Go after it. You know, whatever it is, man.
It's the thing you teach your kids.
It's exactly what you teach your kids. You know, I pray that my daughter at 12 years old comes to me and it's like, I don't want to go to school anymore because it's useless. Let's build a business. Done. I will never.
I mean, that's kind of like she is homeschooled privately, but the curriculum is amazing. She chooses it.
Yep.
But she's building Snacks by Nature with me. It was her vision where we co-build this brand, And now I'm learning as a business owner, understanding this, all the tax incentives for having your kids be part of your business. And I had such a mind shift with taxes. And this is hysterical, but you know what, parents? Like, this is real. Like, again, sharing statements. There's the victim mentality and then real. I've always thought it's so bad to say, but it's so true. The more income you make, the more that you're taxed, and it's true. But if you really understand it, and you get with someone that understands the tax incentives, if you do the things that the government is laying out for you, they are doing it in service of the community. They want business owners. If you start to understand these things, it's a freaking gift.
It is.
But you just have to understand it. They want you to gift your children and bring your children into your business.
But not even just your children, you're rewarded for all aspects of it. You know what I mean? You're definitely rewarded by it.
There are specifically tax incentives for all that. We're about to lose power. That's crazy.
That's all right. I love it.
Man.
And I love all that stuff. I love that she's helping you with it. I think that's so much more valuable than any type of schooling you're ever going to get. And why not foster it? Look, how you got where you are in life, I'm guessing. How I got where I got in life, I know. Because I basically failed my way here. This worked, this didn't. This worked, this didn't. Get rid of the thing that didn't work, double down on the thing that did. Get rid of the thing that didn't work, double down on the thing that did. You're cutting out years of that by letting her start at 15, 14, whatever. We're going to start to build this thing together and guide them. And then the beautiful thing is you and your youngest, Gabriel, is that correct? Okay. Well, when he wants to come up and do it, think of how your team is going to be 10 years down the road of what you'll be able to offer him in a team setting. It's not just going to be you figuring it out with them. It's look, this is how I have a team. Yeah. We can build it with this team. Come on. I mean, that's amazing. Right? And I love it.
Do you have siblings?
I do.
You're the oldest?
Well, I got two. I got an older stepbrother and older stepsister, and then I have my youngest sister is actually one.
Okay.
She's a little younger than I am.
So it's interesting. This is I'm the youngest of two, and I would say Shekinah is our oldest. I see this common thread with in the nuclear sense, the older sibling, where it's they're carving the path like a machete through the forest, and that makes a beautiful entrepreneur. Or politician. It's someone who's going to carve their way. They understand that they're going to have to fail fast. That they're not expecting an easy path. They want that. They crave it because they understand that they get the control once they do it.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And Monroe and I talk about this all the time. Over a glass of wine, our children have very different understanding and frameworks of life, and we actually have to try and remind Gabriel of what he's blessed into that he doesn't know. And Shekinah knew Monroe and I when we were in a one-bedroom apartment, and she was sleeping on our couch.
Yeah. Slum, I sleep in a one-bedroom right now. Yeah. But she gets to see Dad working way out.
Exactly.
Which is beautiful.
And that's invaluable what that's going to do for them. I don't think it's to say you're screwed if you're not the first kid. I'm obviously the third, and I was my brothers were both very successful, and I was oh shoot, I'm going to be the black sheep, or I'm going to be the one who's different. Right. And then I had that something to prove off my shoulder. Where no, I want to do so great in this world. Yeah. So everything has its place.
Everything.
But it's just an interesting perspective.
And I read. Don't quote me on this, but I believe I read somewhere that most Olympic athletes and the best athletes and families are the youngest. Because they have to keep up with the older ones. So at a younger age, they see, again, observing and doing, they see an older brother of 8 running and riding a bike. So at 3, they're like, give me a bike. I'm going with him.
Legit, Gabriel's reading.
Yeah.
We were reading last night, and it actually was the word bike, and he said thick. And I was like, oh my God. It was so exciting. My kids were 3 2 weeks ago.
Because they just observed.
He's kind of doing it. Yeah. And it's just second nature, and which is also kind of fascinating. What are we limiting? The human potential is so unlimited. We use 10% of our brains, and yet, I don't know, that's a bigger, that's just a pontification. But what are we limiting?
I think about that all the time. I can't remember the exact age that Vanderbilt was when he took over the family fortune, but it was somewhere between 18 and 24. I went to the Biltmore and was listening to the audio. What? This kid's 18 taking over a family fortune. The people who wrote our Constitution were 25 years old. Right.
But a 14-year-old can't order a son.
Right. 14-year-old can't order a son. That's where we've gone. Could you imagine if one of those dudes was standing in there? He'd be like, what? It's insane. And I don't think that our children have to be able to write the Constitution, but they can start a business. They can do these things. And again, I mean, the reason my daughter's in Waldorf school, the reason she's homeschooled is because I'm not going to indoctrinate her with dumb, useless, numbing out things, right? And I think it's the same with, again, dad being head of the household, in quotations, everybody relax if you're not watching it. But in establishing that he's the authority to the subconscious, he's programming the children with everything he does. And dad will always be the one that, whether it's mom, whether it's the boy or the girl, they're always going to see dad as the authority in that aspect, if you allow it. So either dad programs them or Disney does.
Yeah.
But you chose which one.
Yeah.
Disney didn't choose to program your kid. You let Disney program
you chose
to let Disney because you didn't do it. Sorry.
I have a very interesting thought on this.
Yeah.
Like, in our personal relationship, we're like very 50-50, but like, it's interesting because obviously Monroe, you met him, he's like a very physical, big guy. Yeah. He's like very present, but he's also so nurturing and like understanding. And then you have me, obviously, like in like comparison, but a very strong personality. But he gives me that space, and I feel like he's giving me like the structure backbone for me to thrive. So he's taught me a very valuable lesson. Like when I was growing up, I thought femininity and masculinity were very like the gender roles.
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand. And you said like not to get like in the woo, they could be like positive and negative, yin and yang.
Yeah,
like, I talked about it on a different podcast, but it's like he's giving me the structure. Like I'll give you the best example. On our second date, one of our first dates, he took me to a church service with him, Samoan church in Seattle. Like I still remember going to his youth service, and he talked about the difference between being male and being a man. This was such a cool sermon. It was like males want to like sow the seed, plow the field, but men want to cultivate the earth. And he had many examples of that. I still remember that. It was like 10 years ago. I still very much remember like, oh, I think he's this one, and like I'm here for it. And now I realize like I'm the garden. Like he's allowed me to be what I've grown to be, and it's the same thing for our children, and the same thing, that women. It depends if you're a co-parent or it doesn't matter. Like we are doing that for our children, so I think that's beautiful. But you could hear what you said and easily go to like, oh, he's like controlling, and I take it as, and you'll understand in a second when you explain to the audience the whole doctor portion of what you do and the whole integration. But you're doing something very in service where you're like tuning into someone and understanding what she needs and giving her that. It's a very higher level masculinity, and I've just really learned that in the past few years. Yeah,
and I think so. Your dynamic is very much like my best friend Bree and her husband Barry's dynamic. Very much like that. And I'm more, let's say, I kind of play both of the roles in my household because I have to right now. I trust her mom. I think her mom is a great mother, but I don't know what goes on over there all the time. I am very particular in how I do things. So there is that dynamic. So my logo is actually designed off of what you just talked about.
Oh, wow.
So it's me holding my hand like this and my daughter's dancing on it. So the way I perceive the masculine, I perceive, or man, is you're supposed to be the stable structure of the universe. Unwavering, unmovable, unshakable. And when you have a stable structure, you can create anything on top of it.
And we're the creation.
And you are the creation. So
beautiful.
That's where the logo comes from. That's how I
also see how that causes so much friction between men and women.
It causes so much friction between men and women. Right? And it does. And you learn, there's tons of people that talk about being able to learn about how to communicate with each other. It's not my forte. But I'm learning it with my daughter, right? But she sees dad as this stable structure that she gets to be this beautiful thing and create upon, right? And if that's crying or if it's being crazy or if it's being loud or if it's being whatever wild thing she chooses to be that day, it's okay to be that in the presence of this. And I view that stable structure, or whoever plays the role of that stable structure, is the highest level of authority to communicating to the subconscious mind.
So I have a question on this, because this is interesting to me. So you are obviously, like, everything about you just comes across as very, like, stable and very masculine. But the cool thing is that doesn't translate to, like, being, like, inaccessible. Like, you show Sloan when you're not feeling a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think, and that is not a traditional, maybe I'm over generalizing, that's not a traditional masculine trait. when you think of it like the way our parents, it was like, don't show feeling.
Yeah.
You are very much showing her all of your emotions, and you're able to still do that.
Control them.
Exactly.
You feel I teach her all the time. Feel your feelings, but we're not staying in the feelings. So she gets that message all the freaking time. I want you to feel everything that you need to feel, all of it. But we aren't fucking living in control.
Yeah, that's gold.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a time I was literally sitting on the couch crying. Like her and I were going at it. I was losing it. My stress was through the roof. I wasn't parenting the way I want to parent. Like everything was just
never happened to anybody.
Yeah, never happened to anybody except me. And the perfectionist in me is like breaking down. So like, this is what I want to. So I just put my hands in like I was like this, and I started crying.
Yeah.
And she sits beside me. Changes immediately. She changes all of her emotions immediately. And she's like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I feel like I'm failing you as a father." Because that's how I felt. Why would I hide how I'm feeling from her? That's not going to do anything.
And then what you just did not accomplish in 20 minutes of yelling was just accomplished.
Yeah, it just accomplished. And she sits there and she puts her arm around my shoulder and she's like, "No, Dad, you're doing a great job." And I'm like, I mean, like, now I'm going to start crying, right? So I like start crying. I'm like, shit. But, you know, I want to be as raw with her as possible, but then she saw me work my way out of the emotions. It's okay. You know, we're allowed to have them and you should have them.
And you should share that you have them because it's like you're telling your kid, like, this is a crappy example, but it's like I can think of, like, I love you when you're all cute and you're put together and you're polished. When you're in your pajamas and your hair's a mess, I don't love you. You would never say that because you love them in both. However, we're doing it every day with their emotions.
Yeah.
Every freaking day.
Yeah.
And, like, I saw it with Shekinah. Now it's very interesting with Shekinah because she's not biologically from her body. Yeah. So, like, I know when I talked about this when she was younger all the time, like, this is how I knew that they were my family. And this is a whole spiritual component, like, way, way beyond the scope of this podcast. But it's like, there were times when I was 22 and single and going to the gym, and a month later I had a kid. And a 4-year-old kid, right? So there were days where I'm like, wow, I was really dealt with some very interesting things that I had to immediately feel the feels and decide, I don't care. That is not happening. That's not how we're going to do this.
Yep.
And you have to just make a decision.
You know, and it's again, in control of your emotions, which I'm not a Navy SEAL. I don't know any Navy SEALs, but I would imagine that's what they're taught. Like, look, if someone were to come into my home, I don't get the opportunity to feel scared. I have to act right away. The masculine needs to shut the fucking emotions off and put a bullet through his head. Or whatever. Yeah. That's what you have to do. Yeah. Then I can go back and feel the emotions. So there are times when you teach your kid that too. Right? Like, there are times you just got to handle shit. You know, and that's okay. Like, whatever that situation is, whatever's happening on the playground, like, you know, letting kids work things out on their own. Like, some kids just slung at the park the other day, and I'm like, well, baby girl, there's a few things we need to look at here. One, he's allowed to shush you. Because we live in America, and you can shush people. Why did it offend you that he shushed you? Why did it bother you? You know, well, because I was very polite and I said all these things. I'm like, okay, you did the right thing. Your job is to always do the right thing and let other people do whatever they need to do. You know? Then she was like, no, okay. You know, kind of went about her thing. And then came back again. He shushed her again. I'm like, okay, baby girl, what are you going to do about it at this point? You have to figure it out.
I like that she's cuddling up with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm like, well, now it's time for you to go figure it out. Like, figure out how to communicate with this person and why they're doing that, but you don't stop doing the right thing, you know, and handle it. And you said, man, there was something you said that I was like, oh, I wanted to break off about that, but I can't remember what it was. We could talk about something else.
I like what you're talking about is very like, and she's in a Waldorf school, like Dave's daycare is like kind of Montessori Waldorf, like composite, and it's interesting, like. They teach you in those curriculums, like, if it doesn't want to share, they don't have to share. Yeah. And I find it fascinating because in one level, we are communal creatures. And I also think what we talked about earlier, like, where are we inhibiting our children? And, like, do we have it figured out? Like, are we really great co-creators?
Right.
So, like, maybe I shouldn't juxtapose what I got going on in my, like, limited framework over my kid, but then you get the mom looking at you. And it's so interesting, like, and I feel bad saying this, but when my kid is the one being, like, picked on, like, I'm not the mom to jump in because I want to see what he does.
Yep.
And I want to show him that, like, but in a lot of cases, like, it's just happened the other day at T-ball, the other mom jumped in so fast.
Yeah.
But it's like when your kid is the one hurting someone or the aggressor, then it's like, okay, then we correct them.
Yeah, you have to self. I mean, you do. You're like, look, I understand you got frustrated. The answer's not hitting somebody, which brings up why you don't hit kids. And I had told you before this, I hit Slim. I stopped. Like I didn't spank her. Didn't longer, but I mean, I spanked her. And it was right. Like, the first year and a half or 2 years, I had done that, and then I realized, like, whoa, well, what if she hits me? I'm not going to be okay with that. So then, how can I be okay hitting her? And then send the message. Dad's allowed to hit you when you do something wrong, but if I do something wrong, you can't hit me. And boy, that's really fucking confusing. And then violence is the answer. So when you get to the playground, someone does something you don't like, you're going to punch them in the fucking face, and I'm going to get mad at you, and the police are going to get. That doesn't work. Like the messages you just sent to the subconscious do not work. So I'm like, it's got to go.
Isn't it amazing? Right, and Jim Carrey said something at a commencement speech about like the fact that we like just what you just went through in that diatribe of 5 seconds was the like gauntlet of human emotion that you would feel. Like we are not emotional teaspoons, to reference Harry Potter. We have so much going on.
And you got more than one feeling at a time. I teach on that all the time too. Go ahead. Yeah.
And to think that there are how many of us now? What's like 8 billion? Like what's the running quote?
A lot.
There's a lot of us. Like Jim Carrey said, like we actually pretty damn good to consider how much. But everyone has their different emotions that they're feeling. They have different upbringings around those things. So it's like it's kind of a mixed friggin' bag.
Yeah.
And to think that we can yet, and this is why I love the energy component, why that's so fascinating to me as a human being. Yet, despite all of that, when you put these kids in a room, like when I go pick up Gabriel, I do not let him see me for 2-3 minutes. I just watch him.
Yeah.
And they are in the most synchronistic, co-created, beautiful, quiet space. And it's like, we are emotional beings. We are meant to co-create. So despite all those differences, all the crap that like these little bodies have dumped on them, they're still able to thrive.
And they all want to get along together. Yeah. And when they don't get along together, it usually is a belief system that a parent is in. But this is why I love this stuff. Like, so, for instance, the mom that jumped in. Well, the mom that jumped in for their child just sent a message that mom's always going to be here to protect you and always go back to mom. Well, mom's going to die someday. So you're eventually not going to be able to do that in life. Like, those little things imprint on the subconscious at that age. And so you have to pay attention. It's the same with the child falling and how you react and all these things. Like, look, it's okay to co-regulate. That's an okay thing to do. But you need to learn how to regulate your own stuff. And so if you fall and scrape your knee, regulate it. Like teaching her how to regulate her own emotions, her own pain response, how she does things, controlling it all in her mind. All of these little things matter to the subconscious mind. And then we wonder why we got to order our kids fucking sub at 14 years old and get it cut into 4. It's just like, I mean, it was absurd. And I remember if I was that age and my mom would have told me to cut the sub into 4 and she ordered it for me, I would have then ordered any other sub because she ordered it for me. Yeah. And then I would have been like, don't fucking cut it. I need the whole goddamn sub. Like, yes. You feel like that? Just because I'm like, yeah, just out of spite, which has its own issues. I understand. But, like, I mean, that's to me how a male 14-year-old should be. You should be rebellious. You should be angry. You should be trying to figure it out. Mom, I don't want you to tell me how to do it. I'm going to be a man. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to. Like,
I have nephews, an incredible kid, and very respectful. But I love when I see those moments, and I'm like, good, he's a man.
Yeah.
Or like even my son, like in the Hawaiian culture, there's this little leprechaun, like mythical creature called a menehune.
Oh yeah.
And they're like small, they're basically the size of my son, but they're adults, and they're like they create stuff. They're really cool. So we call him the little menehune. He like runs around, and he gets that energy. And like I've heard or I see people like trying to quell that. I'm like, no, let him go. Some freaking country was built, man.
No, absolutely. I mean, thank God someone. I worry about that. I really worry about that. Because I think as a father, something else you mentioned in there when it was like the child is, our schools encourage the child to share their emotions or feel their emotions. Well, if they don't want to feel or share their emotions, that's perfectly fine. But maybe it's the communication style of why they don't want to share them.
Right.
Maybe you ask them in a different manner, like, hey, why don't you teach me how you're handling that? Why don't you teach me how you're doing that? Why don't you teach me how you're doing that? And then when they start to teach you, they realize they have value. And now they have tools. And so that you've just taken something they were shy about and gave it value.
That's a real educator. That's a real educator. But they're so squished in their own KPIs and stuff in the school system that is pretty cool. My mom graduated She retired. She matriculated at 60. She graduated from me. She retired from being a teacher, and it's like she did. Yeah, she made it.
Yeah.
And like she was a true educator at heart, and I met hundreds, and they are out there. God bless you. I have a teacher friend that lives right now. She's incredible.
Mr. Feeney, Boy Meets World.
Yes,
Sloan's gonna definitely watch Boy Meets
Oh
World.
my God, it's such Hero right now is watching Gulliver.
Okay, yeah.
I like the best. I love that.
Yeah.
So good. So, can you please explain to our audience what you do for work, and then integrate that to your connection to like you say that you speak to her subconscious. You have a responsibility to guide the subconscious. I'd love you to connect those two things, but I think that's going to be like, oh,
Okay.
you're welcome.
So I'm going to keep it as 30,000 foot view as I can and not try and go too crazy with it. But your brain and spinal
You're just going to leave that.
Sorry, I was going to go.
Part of your missing.
I'm a chiropractor. I don't do the popping and cracking. I do things very, very different than everybody else does. I actually work with the vibration of the spinal cord. So why I think that's important is we have found through, if you guys are interested, you can look up Alf Briggs. He found adverse mechanical cord tension, right? It changes the vibrational frequency of the spinal cord. In essence, your spinal cord is a better identifier of who you are than your fingerprint. That's crazy.
By the way, it vibrates.
Yeah,
Specific vibration.
The specific vibration. So that vibration, we can actually get trains off people that we're near on a regular basis.
Makes
So we'll
sense.
talk about
I
that.
totally see that.
Yeah. So, which actually cool because Silva, I don't know if you ever heard of Silva, but he talked about how if you, with your partner, you should actually sleep in a twin size bed back to back
Oh, so that
before he knew about any of this.
That's so cool.
Right. And so it's like, oh, of course, so that is how it works.
That's
And so it's funny because Sloan and I, we sleep in the same bed together, and usually I'll fall asleep and she'll be here. We always end up back to back.
We do too. Is that weird?
Yeah, but to me it's not because it's the closest part of your vibrational spinal cord. Why do you do a train on
Maybe
each other?
that's unspoken. Maybe that's innate.
It is,
Right?
and an innate emotional regulator,
Yeah.
or whatever it is, right? A connection device. It's fascinating. So this spinal cord vibrates, and when you deal with any type of stress, thoughts, traumas, toxins, whatever it is, work, it doesn't matter what the stress is, that spinal cord gets pulled. And when it gets pulled, head of hair tie, whatever, when it gets pulled, it puts tension on the brain, puts tension on the spine, and puts you in a fight or flight, which is an emotional response we all know at the end. That emotional response can go a myriad of different directions. It can shut our entire frontal lobe off, make us function in our lower brain. The brainstem, which its job is to fight, feed, and fuck, like we were talking about before. Look at society. Like, we're sold sex, we're sold fighting, and we're sold food on every corner. Okay? Because that's where everybody lives in this brain. This is why people have a hard time creating.
Yeah.
So there's so much tension. You have more emotional tissue in your spine than anywhere else in your body. So if it's twisted and torqued, your emotional system's a disaster. Not to mention the fact that your spine controls 7 trillion cells.
Right.
And if that vibration to all those cells is, you're going to feel, right? And even
You're going to create.
you're going to attract and suck all that in like a vortex because the universe, like attracts like. It's that simple. There's no way around it. So all of that's coming in, and you feel the weight of the world. So when I start adjusting you in a certain way, and we open up that spinal cord, we allow your divinity to shine. We allow the spine to open up.
So cool.
Brain. I love it, right?
I'm just so happy right now to know that someone's made that connection.
Yeah.
And you even take it a step further to the subconscious.
Exactly.
It's
I mean, it's
amazing.
To me, it's the highest level of physical healing. Physical healing, because again, there's all the other aspects. But so for me, then I started asking myself, okay, well, what's creating everything in the body? So I wanted to know the underlying currents that did everything. And so I spent basically 10 years studying consciousness and how it works.
Wow.
And came to the determination that what we call the subconscious mind, because whether there is one or not, it doesn't matter. There's something that's being encrypted upon. It has to have a highway to act out its operating system.
Yep.
That highway is the brain and the spinal cord to all the trillion cells, and the trillion cells send information back and go back. And so, it's very much like the Matrix. Whatever you put in this subconscious, you can just pipe in, jujitsu, and Neo can do jujitsu. Like it's literally that fast if you can operate it in that.
Which is why you see people You might not be there because you might not get that level of vibration, but at least you're aware of it, so that's good.
Yeah.
That's why you see people and they like create these things like nothing.
Great, manifest anything.
And you do all the time. You just don't do it with things that you really want.
Because, which we can talk about, because you have too much of an emotional attachment to it, and you're actually pushing it away in consciousness because you don't believe you deserve it.
Exactly.
And so that's why affirmations don't work, and whatever. We can talk about all those kinds of things.
This is great.
So I was like, okay, if I clear this system and I allow this to vibrate at its divine frequency, and like we were talking about before, I kind of think of it like a pharaoh's, staff. It's here and links all the way down. It's this big golden light that goes up and out to the system. And if it's doing that and it has no interference whatsoever, now consciousness can come in, right? Pure consciousness that is unadulterated and isn't being filtered. And when that happens, you have direct access to the subconscious, and you can start to imprint upon it.
You can write that code.
You can write the code.
You can put the jujitsu.
You can put
the buildings fly.
Yeah, whatever you want. You can put it in there, and then it gets imprinted on all the cells. And so this is why I'm so big on imprinting on my daughter, the important things and the values and the things that I want. And this is when affirmations and declarations actually matter, because the subconscious is taking it as truth. Yes. So, like what you mentioned,
she's young and
she's young, doesn't know that this is the frame of reference. There's no limitations.
This is her foundation for her to build
the rest of her life. The rest of her life. And so, again, like you mentioned, you actually are born a 10 person, and you're taught to be a level 4 person, right? So I'm trying very hard not to teach her to be a level 4 person. So I'm implementing all of these things that are literally limitless behaviors onto a limitless being, which we're finding out now is a real thing through neurology.
Right.
And she then gets to expand on those. And so I'm doing it through this channel of not having that roadblock. And then not to mention that roadblock can cause disease and sickness and whatever. I mean, of course, all of these other things that it can do. But for me, I want her, and again, if that is open, your adaptability, or what I would call your survival value, is through the roof.
Yeah.
And that's what we want more of.
And that also fuels the thriving. Like, we are meant to be alive. You think that means you have to have like a golden spoon and all this stuff? No, you're human. You would find a way in 10 minutes to be dissatisfied with that and want something else. This is not about the things. It is about achieving and striving and growing and changing, and what used to give you purpose now doesn't. So you're refocusing. That is all part of this journey.
And that's, so to take that a step further, if you have all this tension on that spinal cord, your vibration is low. We know that the energy that we put behind anything and the intention is what creates everything. It's real. So if you have that, you're putting the intention of survival and fear behind it. So if you're creating a business,
what could that possibly? Yeah.
Right.
Where could that possibly?
Exactly. Create a business because it needs to make you money. Well, it's going to have scarcity behind it, so it's not going to create you money, right? Now, if I open this system up, we take the tension off the spinal cord, and you start to function the right way and move into a thriving standpoint, and you create a business or something from an energetic standpoint of thriving. Well, these are two very different things, right? And so,
this is amazing.
Giving her that opportunity, right, and then imprinting upon her all the
that she is limitless, that she controls her.
Literally everything.
This is amazing.
I mean, I go through all of these affirmations with her. Some I've come up with on my own, some I've gotten from like Juliet and all of these other people that are like the OGs of all that stuff. They did plenty of research to make sure that it's right, and even just to touch on this real quick for people with affirmations, I think it's valuable. Is if you tell yourself, I am wealthy, and you're not wealthy,
or you don't feel it,
or you don't feel like you're wealthy, or nobody in your family is wealthy, you're actually pushing it in consciousness farther away because you're like, I can't be that. So the way I augment,
and you can just say it like, I'm understanding as you say it, and you can feel it in your stomach, like it is already resistance. Sorry.
So for me, I was like, all right, how do I decrease the resistance to that? Exactly. What you don't have a resistance to is the word love. You have no resistance to love. You can say, well, all day.
Yeah.
Okay, so then before you go to bed and before you wake up, you are teetering on the subconscious mind. So you have this thing called the conscious mind, and we have this thing called the subconscious. My world, the conscious mind is the guardian of the gate. So it's actually very beautiful to have a conscious mind because you don't get sold snake oil.
Yeah.
Right? It filters out all the shit that it doesn't want to go here because that's a bad operating system. Right? So thank God you have a conscious mind. 0 to 7, you don't have that. You're directly into the subconscious. It's a sponge. You're building the foundation for the subconscious to create the conscious, to allow the conscious mind to then guard the gate.
That is so important.
And so if you want to do anything, you have to break through the conscious mind.
As an adult.
As an adult.
Yeah.
So how are you going to break through the conscious mind if you say, I am wealthy, and you feel good, right? So you can break through by just saying the word wealth. Okay, well, when does the conscious mind start to go away? Because the conscious mind is what operates all this shit all day long. The subconscious makes your heart beat, makes you sleep, makes you do all these other things. So as you're falling asleep and as you're waking up, that's when those things are teetering back and forth, and when you have the most optimal time to imprint on it if you're trying to change something.
Exactly.
So what I do is before I go to bed is I say health, wealth, success.
Love it.
Over and over again like a lullaby, like you're counting sheep until I fall asleep. I fall asleep every night to health, wealth, success, because I'm not dictating the level of health. I'm not dictating the wealth, and I'm not dictating success, saying I am these things. I'm just simply saying them.
Love it.
And when I was going through the divorce, I literally went to bed at night saying happy, 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 happy over and over again because I wasn't happy.
Exactly.
And so if I said I am happy, I'm going to fuck up my whole sleep.
Yeah.
But I just, every night, happy.
Because
happy,
you can resonate with that. You can feel it. And then you'll picture yourself. And then, hey, now you're vibrating there. So guess what?
A couple months later, all of a sudden, you're vibrating at it. You can think about it. You can say these things, and you can be this and be like, damn, I actually am healthy. But you bypass the shit that is holding you from
because it's the I am part
that
you have all those connections to. So you remove it. One of my business coaches, Ryan Morin, said to me the other day, and I love. So Abraham Hicks is a very spiritual person, and I love Abraham Hicks too. And evidently he followed Abraham too. So there's like nuts to me, but he was quoting something about this. And it's like, I think this is a great mirror. If you have a resistance to something that you want, you'll start to notice you have animosity towards others that have it. That's a really clear sign that you're in resistance to that thing. Like if your neighbor has a nice car or someone has this and this, and you, inside, you don't have to say it out loud, like you know you are. We all have it. You feel a certain way about it.
Yeah.
Well, good. That just showed you where you are at with that limiting belief.
Yeah.
Now, as Dr. Rocco said to his 6-year-old, we get to say to ourselves as parents, to parent ourselves more than we parent our children, is because they don't need parenting. We need parenting.
Yeah.
They just need fostered environment.
Yeah.
Is right now you can choose.
You can choose.
Now you can choose.
And, and also the best part of that is 1 to 7, they can say I am.
Yes.
Because they don't know that they're not.
No, and you believe it when you do it with them.
Yeah.
Gabe and I do that all the time.
And I believe that's the whole ancient Hawaiian tradition that there's the whole bless that which you want.
Yes.
So if you see something that makes you feel, I have it on or had it on like where my speedometer was just said bless. Like if you
talk
see
about a buzzword nowadays.
Yeah, right. You see a Lamborghini and you are like, man, I want a Lamborghini, and then you resent the guy who has a Lamborghini. Well, conscience is never going to give you something you resent. You don't want to become that.
Exactly.
Right? So you're going to hold it in resistance. So start blessing it. And that's a whole
That's
thing.
exactly where I was going with this. And I think of course it's perfect. And it's like when you start to see it around you, just because it's driving in front of you, you created that too. So bless that. Show gratitude to that. You are already calm.
You're already calm.
Just because that's sitting in your driveway, but again, even if it was, would you be happy? The answer is no, because you haven't cleared the crap.
Right.
And so that's what it's all about. Is when you see it, instead of saying, "Oh, my neighbor has this," I'm resentful. Is, "Oh man, I'm so grateful to see that somebody who's relatively the same age as me, who is relatively has the same type of start that I did in life, was able to do this. This is phenomenal. This is my green light to show that I can do this."
Yeah.
That is such a different energy
So different.
than just blah.
No, I mean that to me that's everything, because it's how you view, how you perceive, how you do everything is how you're going to reap the reward later. And it's the same. So how do I say this? I don't like charity. I don't like giving to charity, and I don't like the word charity.
Okay.
I love what they're trying to do.
You love helping people.
Yes. But in the aspect of charity, you're in essence reaffirming.
Yeah, it's a self-limiting belief.
Yes, you're reaffirming that self-limiting belief, and you're
I can't do it
reaffirming.
myself, so I need people.
And so now, how are they ever going to get out of there? Because you just imprinted onto their subconscious that to get what you need to always be receiving charity.
Right.
How are they going to get out of charity if that's what their subconscious now believes? They're going to create more and more and more. That is a victim mentality. That is not putting them in the power of a creator. And so I'm not okay with that. I'm not saying don't help people. I'm not saying don't do the right thing. But my God, don't just do it in that manner, because then they see no other way. because you just met their needs. And if you meet the needs, the subconscious is going to go, that was easy, let's do it again. It's the fastest way to get my needs met is to be a victim, be a victim, be a victim. Again, children, I believe everything, the reason there are victims in the world is because mom and dad, you created victims. End of story. Like, if you create a child, if you have a child, and every time they're miserable, you show them more attention and more love, they just like misery with attention and love, you just created a victim. Yeah. Not okay. So this is why, for me, this is why all this I felt like this had to start, because I believe, I don't want to say the world's going in a different direction right now, but I'm not too sure I'm okay with the way things are going right now. And I look at it and I go, how did it get there? How does there a kid in Tennessee who thinks he's a dog that wants to shit in a
we just had this conversation
a thing at school? Like, how did that happen?
Just had this conversation with my cousin.
And I look at it and I go, because the dad didn't do something. The dad wasn't present. The dad didn't teach them something. Like, you're a woman. Be fucking proud of that. Yeah. Like, if I say to my daughter, like, hey, man, she goes, I'm not a man. She's 6 and she knows she's a fucking woman and she's proud of it. Like, it doesn't mean you're limited. It doesn't mean you don't have as much. It doesn't mean you're less valuable. I would argue you're more valuable. Yeah. Yeah. So it has to start now.
You know what's cool about this? It's like you're motivated by a nightmare, and not you, like society. Like, I think there are so many people like you and me who are activated right now because we're seeing, if I don't do something, like we've always had the impetus within us to share a message. It just didn't feel necessary, and now it does.
Yeah.
Now there's been a very clear.
Yeah. It's been like 8 years building in me where I'm like, I don't want to. And all of a sudden I was like, I have to.
Same.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I had like some of my spiritual teachers and stuff. They're like telling me for the past few years, like, yo, something is about to shit quick.
No.
And it's like, it's going to go fast. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I'm like, doing my thing, my thing. And then all of a sudden with this snack business, it's like, I get so like worked up the way you do. I'm like, but Shekinah comes to me, Mom, let's do this. Let's make a better snack for Gabe's age kid. I'm like, awesome, baby. Very good. Love it. And then I'm thinking, I'm sure they're doing the best they can. I start to research it. I'm like, this is disgusting. I'm like viscerally unokay now.
Yeah.
And now we got to do something about it.
Yeah.
And now I have a choice. And my choice is to fight.
Yeah, right. And then again, it's back to choice. You have a choice. You can
I'm not just going to sit there and be okay and keep doing the damn thing.
Right.
We're not doing that.
Yeah.
We're going to make it.
And if you chose that, in my world, what I teach, you don't get to complain anymore. You made the choice. Right. You're fine with that. This is why I make homemade beef jerky, because I can't find beef jerky anywhere that I want to feed my kid. Amazing. And so she loves it.
Recipe swap.
We make it, yeah. I love it. And so again, it comes back to what are you teaching her? Teaching her, I don't like something, which means there's an opportunity, because if I don't like it, there's other people that don't like it. If there's an opportunity, there's money. And what does money do? Money makes more opportunity. Money makes the world go
Money's energy.
Money's energy.
It's just a form of energy.
And look, I've had to struggle with it. I've gotten the opportunity to overcome a lot of from my family. One of the awesome ones that I recently, with my friend Bree, Aunt Bree, whatever we want to call her, was, again, we've shared how like I'm up against it every month right now because I'm putting a lot of money into a business that's not generating any money. And I'm in the middle of transitioning another one, which means not as much attention's going to that one, which means the revenue's not coming in like it was before, but this is growing. It's this whole thing.
Yeah,
and so I was thinking about getting rid of my cleaning lady.
Sorry, and then you just made it real personal problem.
I made it a real personal problem. We're gonna tie we're gonna tie it all together because and again this is perfect. So this is gonna tie it all together. So how do you handle it all? I have a cleaning lady come every 2 weeks, right, and help because my house I can't handle it. Like my house gets behind. And when my house gets behind, I lose my center, right? And I don't want to raise my daughter in a house that gets behind. Do my absolute best, but to be present with her, run 2 businesses, take her to piano, do all these things.
You're a single parent.
Yes, no help. Yeah. Like when Taylor comes into town, she comes like once a month. Taylor, right? She comes into town. She's like, "How the fuck do you do this when I'm not here?" I'm like, "I'm not even sure at this point."
I feel like parents are going to be so impressed and like you set a high bar.
Well, again, that was my goal, though. When Sloan was born, I was like, okay, this is it. I had a buddy that told me. He was like, every man she dates for the rest of her life is going to be compared to you. And I was like, oh, fuck that. I'm like, let's go. Game on. That was it. I was like, that's it. I'm going to be a Viking. I'm like, I was walking down the avenue yesterday from the cigar lounge. I was walking back. And I had this, like, day, this vision. And I was like, because I'm about to start teaching her how to be weekend this summer when we go home.
You saw our crossbow.
Yeah, I love it. And so I'm about to start teaching her how to shoot the BB gun. And I was like, I had this vision of her being like 18 and us going shooting with her boyfriend and her running through like a gauntlet. And me just like putting my hand around his shoulders and be like, if you mess with her, I don't have to kill you. She'll fucking do it. It's like, it's going to be awesome.
That's a real Viking woman.
Yeah.
This woman, I was like, wow.
Yeah. and so, so that was like a way that I could self-care. Then I started feeling guilty about it. First world problems, like, all of these things. It all started coming in.
And
I was like, it does.
It's meant to be felt and released.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh my God, I got to get rid of the cleaning lady. Then I don't know what I'm going to do because I don't know. I can keep up for like 4 or 5 days and then it piles up and then I'm going to lose my train of thought and then I'm not create all these things.
But it came to what you said earlier. How do I do both?
How do I do both? So I call Bree and I'm like, Bree, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm like struggling.
Bring the stage, girl.
Yeah.
Release some demons.
And she's like, listen, your wealth is creating wealth. It's creating jobs. How's she going to feed her family if she's not cleaning her house? How's she going to do this if she's not doing that? Like, and I was like, oh my God, that's the mind shift and perspective I needed shifted, right?
Amazing.
Like, it's not too much. It's not whatever. And then I started telling myself out of nowhere, I was like, I get to out-earn my situation, not decrease my revenue.
Exactly.
I get to out-earn this motherfucker. You know?
Make a bigger pie.
That's it.
That's it. And that's the thing. We're also like, if you're uncomfortable with this place and you're like, I need to start pinching, I need to do this, like, I really encourage you to just take a minute and sit with that.
Yeah.
Is that the limit of you? Or is there a way you can stretch your capacity?
Yeah.
Because I'm a big thing of the capacity principle. Like, take a balloon for the first time and you blow it up, it gets to whatever the diameter circumference, then you release it. Guess what happens the next time you blow it up? Instantly you'll get 30% more capacity of that balloon.
Yeah.
Because it's muscle memory.
Out-earn your situation, become a bigger person. Like, your problems don't go away, you just become more adaptable.
Parenthood, entrepreneurialism, teaching, to me, and there's more. Right? I think being a physician, if you're mindful about it, and I know everyone's trying to do the best they can, so I'm very, very clear on it. But if you're like in alignment with the true goal and not just doing it, like you said, out of belief, if I want to make money, so I'm going to do this. It's not that, but the ones that are in service. It's so cool to me because it's a very spiritual calling. Like, whether you're religious or not, we are all really on the same path.
If you parent right, it's the most spiritual experience you'll ever have.
We had a doctor on the other day. You can have dogs, you won't learn as much about yourself.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about before, like, you have this little thing that's this big off the ground, mirroring back all of your limitations and stuff, like all of your beliefs.
And
just right there. And and what are you going to do? Like, are you going to change, or are you just going to let it happen? I read a quote the other day. I think I read it or heard it or whatever, and it was, oh my God, what was it? It was I'm not huge on quotes because, like, I don't like, that. I think motivation is very important. People right now are going through an argument that motivation is not real. Well, hold on a second. The motivation is going to give you the energy to have the momentum to make it a purpose, and that's perfectly fine. It's a very real thing. But one of the quotes was, hell is when who you could have been meets who you are.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. And then the other one was,
that's big.
Look at yourself in the mirror and analyze yourself. And would you be proud if your daughter brought you home?
Wow.
And then it was like, if not.
See, as a dad, I can see that.
Oh my God. I was like, and I am. Like, I was able to do that and look at myself and be like, yeah, I'm good with it, But damn, it doesn't mean I don't want to be more. Because then in my head, I'm like, well, hold on. That's not enough. Let's do more. So this is where that cycle goes, which is the overwhelm, the perfectionist, and then the, like, how you handle it and put it all together.
And the divine feminine would have that same, and then we're going to wrap. But the divine feminine would say, look in the mirror until this is what I do with Shekinah all the time. She had a very different start in her life. Yeah. I said, let's look in the mirror and let's look in your eyes until you see your inner child. Mm-hmm. If you could see the way you look at Gabriel about yourself, how would that make you feel? Yeah. And that does the opposite of what you're, but that's the feminine and the masculine. Striving, structure, and you need both. And then also, let's be very happy with who we are and let's love our goal.
Well, this is why I pay somebody to do that part for me. Or not for me, that's not the right way to say it. I pay somebody to set the environment for the feminine part so that I can access it also. Because it's very easy for me to drop. And, there was a period of time, again, men, real quick, and then we can wrap. I felt for about 8 years of my life, or more, actually probably from the time I was younger playing basketball, from when I speared a kid on the court because he pushed me.
You scared him?
Yeah, right. He pushed me up against like the wall, and then I ran down to the other. He was a big fat.
What'd you scare him with?
My shoulder.
Oh, okay.
My God. I ran down to the other end of the court. We were in like 8th grade, and he came tumbling down after he just slammed me into the wall, and I sprinted because I didn't win. I sprinted from midcourt all the way down. Just to get the momentum, speared him right in the middle.
Oh my God, I was a 4 at the basketball. I had nothing to spear.
Yeah, well, I literally like Goldberg, from like WWF, right in the middle. That was the last game I played. But from basically, it was all jacked up. And they were like, time for football. I'm like, okay. But I was basically told that I'm too masculine, I'm too much, and to dim it down forever. So I did. And then I was trying to search for the longest time while I was with my ex-wife, the feminine. I was trying to search on how I can become more feminine. And it didn't feel good. I fucking hated it. And I was like, this sucks. Then she left, and I met my life coach, who's amazing, Heather. And
coaches, man,
they're the best.
Get you one.
And instead of focusing on me becoming more feminine, she's like, let's knock the dust off and you become more of the man that you're supposed to be. And I'm like, oh, God, that feels good.
Way better.
Let's do way more of that.
Because the other one's in service of what I'm not.
Yes.
It's the same thing about the wealth thing. It makes you feel icky because it's not in resonance with who you are right now.
Yeah.
And you'll find it. Once you are that man, like, boom, what happened?
All of a sudden the feminine drops in and I'm able to be able to be around it, be present.
Because you're not supposed to be both.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, it was fascinating. So
Dr. Rocco, tell our people where they can find you, where they can follow this dad time, where they can show their love.
Okay. Every social media platform is It's Dad Time _, and a website will be coming soon. Will be itsdadtime.com. Not there yet, but that's where they can find me. It'd be great. Reach out to me. Send me direct messages. My assistant will tell me. I'll respond to it. Again, first world problem. Listen, my assistant's unfreaking believable. I would not be where I'm at without her. So I will get rid of all cleaning services before that lady goes anywhere. She's with me for the long haul.
My assistant's badass too. She feeds my kids. She cleans my house. She puts on my clothes. We'll get there one day.
Yeah.
You're implementing the owner's model. So
when I talk to students or I talk to anybody, the first thing I tell everybody is find an assistant that resonates with you and hire them as fast as possible.
100%.
I didn't do it until 4 months ago.
Yeah. And so much faster you've been able to go.
My life has changed so much in those 4 months that I wouldn't be here right now without her. It's funny because you think about the future and I'm like, all right, where is she going to have a division of dad time that she runs the whole thing? Because it's
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, so if you have a business, forget about hiring anyone else. Find an assistant that can help you. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's the best.
It's changed my life.
And that's what they teach you, right? You need to be an owner. You're not supposed to be everything. It's the same thing as a parent. And guys, that is why I made this channel. It is literally why I'm here, because I want to connect. I want you to say, oh, that Dr. Rocco guy, I love how he was super masculine, but he also had I love the way he set a vision for his daughter. That's your guy. Go follow him. Or the people that love the hypnotherapist guy that put me under the hypnotherapy. That was totally amazing. They're just tools for you to plug into. You don't need to have all the answers.
And always go with that's it. And always go with your resonate. Don't force it. There's people online that I'm like, that's not the person I'd want to hire as a coach. And they make a lot of money. And then there's people online like, that's the person I'd want to hire as a coach, and they make a lot of money. So it has to be who you want to work with. But definitely send me messages. Podcast is also up. It's Dad Time. I don't release them every week. It's every other week, and I do a Friday Focus every other week. If you want topics talked about, please message me because I can riff about anything. I would love it. That makes my life so much easier.
Yeah.
This was amazing. You're amazing.
Speaking of riffing off of everything, this is my longest podcast to date, so congratulations. We spoke for 2 hours before. We went from no prep time to we don't know each other's lives. No, but this was amazing. We'll probably have you back on because I love your voice and I love hearing from dads. I love the co-parenting. I love how just raw you are.
Next time, thank you.
Yeah, and I like it's very co-creative in my vibe. So I actually like to have somebody on the first time, and then our community's great about asking questions. Yeah, so we'll let them do that.
Yeah, ask questions.
And then we'll have Dr. Rocco back on. So I'm gonna try to do my hair next time, so I'm not outshined.
I'll get the side shave that actually shaved my. I was driving here and I was like, I had Sloan last night, so I was driving here and I was like, shit, I forgot to shave my. I was like,
you are. This has been so good. I'll have to brush up on my Viking references.
I like
It's
it.
so good.
I like it.
Parents, thank you guys for being here. I super appreciate it. Hope you guys are having fun in this journey. I'm having a blast. Anything you guys want to learn, that's what we're here for. Let me know. I'll find amazing people like Dr. Rocco to bring them to you. Please bless the subscribe button down below. Get us into more homes with more parents like us. And until the next perfect time, you guys, stay beautiful, stay inspired.